Hey, right, 11:45 and Green Street Green. Like that one very much, number 18 on this week's Fab Type 40.
Males who were born before 1940 had to do what they call national service. You were called up for the Army or the Navy, Air Force, etc. And I got called up for the Royal Air Force and worked behind the scenes in radio telecommunications. And there was an organisation those days called the British Forces Network, which was a radio station that was based in Germany, broadcasting to forces personnel. And quite a few big names of the day, people like Cliff Mitchellmore, Raymond Baxter, and David Jacobs and Desmond Carrington, these sort of characters had gone through that radio format. So I applied to the British Forces Network and said, is there any chance I could be offered a job? And I was offered a job, but it was basically emptying ashtrays and, sweeping up. It was a dog's body job, but it was excellent training ground. And then eventually I managed to get a proper job as a behind-the-scenes boy, and then a producer, and then eventually an announcer. And then I worked overseas for many, many years before coming back to the UK when Pirate Radio was being set up, Radio Caroline. And I joined them in 1964 and worked off Harwich, opposite Frinton-on-Sea and Walton-on-the-Naze. So I spent a few years with Caroline, which was great. Then I moved about commercial radio. I wanted to sample Radio Luxembourg, which was on the continent, broadcasting from Luxembourg. So I did a stint over there, and then eventually I was asked would I like to join Radio London, Big L, also on the high seas near Frinton-on-Sea.
And what do you enjoy most about Pirate Radio, Keith?
Well, we had freedom of the airwaves. You could say what you liked. You weren't bullied into saying you can talk for 10 seconds. It was fun radio. It was exciting radio. It was very lively music of the 1960s. And it was just an incredible experience. Now, looking back 50 years, I'd be very surprised how many people stop you and say, do you remember I took this picture in 1964? My goodness me. And they're still listening to this day. It's incredible. It was a fun period of time. Between 1964 and 1967, I can safely and honestly say it was the highlight of my broadcasting career. I'm still working for the BBC now, but you don't have that freedom of the airwaves as we had those days.
Among the many great mixture of music that you must have played, what's your favourite, would you say, Keith?
What, the favourite record? Oh, golly, that's a difficult question. I suppose a record called Mr. Tambourine Man by the Byrds, that indirectly I got involved in. That record was not released in Britain at the time. It came from America, and it was eventually released in Britain, and it became a number one in the hit parade. So I look back and say, had it not been for me, that wouldn't have been a hit. But great records like Excerpt from a Teenage Opera and Procol Harum's A Whiter Shade of Pale. There were some great records of the day.
Well, that's the end of the road for the dreaded. So with tears in my eyes and my kneecaps withering at half-mast, it's fun farewells. Ian Damon's kindly let me overrun at 12 o'clock. It's half a minute past right now. So, there we are. I hope to meet up again one of these fine days. Don't know where, don't know when, as the saying goes. Thanks very, very much, seriously, everybody, for everything in the past. All your letters, your mail, everything, it's been too much, really.